Called this regular meeting of City Council to order tonight, January 21st, 2020. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I need a 5-minute for non-elected personnel to discuss a personnel matter. And letter of support for Carolyn as well.
I need to add the loan payment for the nitrate plant. It wasn't included in the appropriation that we sent out.
Do you have that?
$36,727.23.
Say that once again.
$36,727.23.
Do we add the resignation letter to the agenda to accept it?
John?
That's up to you. I mean, I guess I don't know whether he resigned or whether he was terminated.
Resigned. So we need to add it.
Yeah, I'll add the letter of resignation to new business.
Okay. Are there any other additions to the agenda?
There may be one. It's up to you.
Mayor, can we put on there just a discussion with council on marijuana possession and paraphernalia ordinance that we don't have?
Just under you?
Yeah, I guess that'd be fine, yeah.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Approved minutes, regular council meeting, January 7th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Now, when I read this right here tonight, should I just put it under appropriation ordinance? Okay. Appropriation ordinance 12-31-2019 and 1-21-2020 in the amount of $35,276.43 and petty cash in the amount of $176.46. Also nitrate loan in the amount of $36,727.23.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Guess I'm supposed to abstain to one of those. So,
Okay.
no, Davis Electrical's on there.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, moving on. Nicely Brothers.
No, that was, I think that was actually from the old one from last meeting.
That was not on. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Because this printout shows everything from last meeting.
That was last meeting.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, everything all included.
Yep.
Okay, now, it passed regardless.
Okay, moving on to Nicely Brothers.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having me. Thanks to Jamie and Pam for putting me on the agenda. So the reason I just wanted to pop in real quick was your contract runs out this year with your current provider, and so we want to be super sensitive to local business. Usually, every other meeting I've ever been to, I'm the little local guy fighting against the big, international companies. I feel a little bit strange here, and so we want to be sensitive about that. But at the same time, we want to provide, or we want to, give you guys an option and just let you know what we can provide. So something that we've been around since 1956. The owner that founded it sold it to his 3 boys maybe 20 years ago, and then eventually one of their sons will take over here in a few years. So we're a very, very family oriented company. We try to run new equipment. We have cameras in our truck, backup cameras for obvious reasons, and so we feel like we have a pretty good safety record. We do have a pretty good safety record. Just some things we can offer. We run new equipment, and that just helps us to be more dependable. We have mechanics, full-time mechanics with service trucks ready to go if something breaks down. So we've been, are you guys, I need to ask you guys about recycling. How does St. John feel about recycling? Is it something you would ever want to get into, or is it something you don't care about?
I can't speak for the rest of council, but I've spoken with several people in the community that are, have been asking about a single stream recycling program.
Okay, so that's something we would be willing to offer, and obviously we haven't done a detailed proposal or anything, but we feel like we could probably offer trash and recycling for $20 a month. And again, that's, I don't wanna, don't hold me to that, but we think that's what we can do. And then if you weren't interested in recycling, we feel like we could bring trash in at about $17 to $18 a month. And that would be for weekly pickup and every other week, if you were interested in recycling, every other week recycling pickup. So, we just wanted to, just touch base with you and see if you would allow us to maybe, turn in a proposal at some point.
Council?
As far as I'm concerned, I think we have a pretty good outfit right now that's doing it. Heard a lot of good things about them. I don't have a problem with them, so, I guess I'm very happy with where we're at right now.
Okay.
John, what is our contract?
I
mean, unless, I think it
It's
was
a
unless
3
we,
years contract and at
It-
the end of this year, and then if
it
you
rolls
don't,
to a 5-year, I
yeah,
believe.
it's automatically rolled. We don't have any complaint or wanting to terminate, so.
I mean, I'm personally okay with it. I think they do a great job. I know that we have recycling available in town to people that want to recycle as well, down at the county. So I mean, I think I'm perfectly fine where we're at with the people right now anyway.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Lisa?
Yeah, just stay with this for now. Stay with Andrews.
Okay, fair enough. If we don't mind, I mean, just keep us in mind for the future.
Absolutely.
Should anything ever change, if, money becomes an issue, just let us know, because we think we can do cheaper.
Okay.
So, and I might mention too, so we do Maxville for $19.70, just so you don't think that, hey, this guy's coming in here with some bogus price that will go up immediately. That is what we charge them right now.
Okay.
So, yeah,
All right, great.
yeah.
Well, thank you
Appreciate
very
stopping
much.
by.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. And throw your trucks to the next trash salesman that comes in. As long as it's not me.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on. Stafford County Economic Development, Carolyn Dunn.
Well, this is, I guess, just a continuation of some of the discussion that started last week when the idea was brought up of what can we be doing additional in economic development. I did provide some things for your packets that I hope you have. You know what, I may not have made an extra copy for John. If you are interested, there's one that I'll need, but
That's good enough.
I think you want one of these.
Yeah.
You need to get one.
I didn't get one, sorry. That's fine, thank you.
so I think I introduced the idea that we've been talking with, at the county level about the idea of an industrial use facility in this area for a while. We actually were authorized in 2014, I think it was, by the state legislature to establish a port authority, which is its own quasi-government entity. It's like an airport would function kind of independent of the municipality. But that was kind of where it ended. And, I think in the early stages, I was hopeful that a company would be interested in walking with us, similar to what White's Food Liner ended up doing with us with the grocery project. They were willing to sign a letter of intent early on that said, if you build it, we will come, kind of thing. But I think that was unrealistic to look at a company like a grain company taking that step without more certainty about what this facility actually would be. And really, if I even look at what happened with the grocery project, we had done these kind of studies even before White's, actually signed on. So I know that not everybody here was involved in this at the time, but early on, the city of St. John and economic development split the cost of this retail site analysis. And it was a $7,000 study that not only looked at different sites and what kind of sales you might expect out of that. So that was part of looking at what the sales potential was in the building, the size of the old Dillon's building versus a new format and so forth. But, you know, it gave sales projections and gave us some data to really build a plan around. And similarly, we did this a few months later, and that was the piece of it that was the fuel that kind of told us multiple things about what we could expect in fuel sales. And it kind of articulated that we're already, you know, losing at that point 60% of the fuel market to outside the county. And, you know, that kind of data that really, again, gave us something to build a plan around. I've looked into, could we get grant funding to do that kind of study? Because when we're looking at something like that, it also involves the preliminary engineering. That would, in this case, be an important part of the feasibility. Is what is it going to cost? I mean, we don't know. Is it 4 million? Is it 10 million? You know, there's a big range there. But those are all probably in the range of possibility. But we need some preliminary engineering to know what that is, so that we can build a plan around it and make a credible, you know, grant application. The two that I think are the obvious places to try for are Economic Development Administration has one around public facilities. It's a smaller program, but it might be the better fit. And you can get up to $3 million in that. And then a second one is through the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's called the BUILD program. And it's ultra competitive, but it's huge. I mean, it's a huge pot to compete from. I mean, it has a lot of funding available. It's almost $1 billion program annually. But there's, you know, City of Hays. I spent an hour last week on the phone with the county the county road administrator for Ellis County. He gave me a lot of tips on applying for that grant, and gave me references for the kind of company they use to do this kind of thing. I also spent time talking with that contractor. The summary report that I gave to you was an example from a similar facility in Seward, Nebraska. This company, Olson Associates, did work for the county a couple of years ago when they got a grant from the state of Kansas to do a site selection analysis for an airport, which they just, kind of left it at that. They're not moving forward on it. This company did that analysis. So they shared with me some of what they've done on a similar kind of thing. They essentially told me, we can spend as much time as you want studying this. So maybe what the practical thing to do is to tell us what you will, because these studies can go, hundreds, thousands. Like I said, I started to tell you that I looked for grant funding that might pay for this kind of thing. There is one through U.S. Department of Commerce, but they flat out told me we really don't like doing the paperwork for grants less than $100,000. They'd rather spend half. I mean, they'd rather cost share a $100,000 project than to pay for a $40,000 project, is what they told me. And so I don't think it's likely at all that we will compete well to get that kind of thing. I think it's going to be the kind of thing that if we want to take some of these actions, we're going to have to take a first step. And maybe, hopefully, that gives us the information we need to get the others on board. I've talked with the county, and I think they're interested, but I think it's a fair characterization to say they want to be a little more assured that they're not the only ones wanting to do this. And I'd even kind of characterize it a little bit like with the grocery project. In the end, it wasn't just one board that supported that. We had city council and the bank board and the economic development board. In the end, I counted over 100 people in our town that either voted for it or actually contributed money to it or whatever. And I think that was a part of what helped that be a successful project, and probably setting the stage for this in a similar way is got some benefit to it. So I don't know if this helps. I mean, it is right now just kind of, it's a concept, it's not a, you know, a precise plan, but what we would have them take a look at, I guess.
That's fine.
Is there enough?
There should be 7. But just to point out where, so maybe, sorry.
You're good.
The highlighted area there is, that's all where public land exists. So that road that's highlighted there is Fifth Avenue. It's one of the few county roads or township roads that's on the half mile. And so the county commissioners have been talking about the logic of considering that. You know, that it could connect the rail with land that they already own, so we wouldn't have to go through a process of procuring land and the uncertainty with that. You know, there's uncertainties here. You know, it would take coordination with the township to see if they want to, you know, close a road, and we know that's gonna happen till we develop a plan, but, you know, theoretically, that would have minimal disruptions to, you know, existing activities, and, you know, it's already kind of in the public domain. But, you know, those kinds of questions, people have asked me, well, would you have to acquire additional footage on, you know, on each side of that road? I don't know, that's part of what this analysis would be able to vet out.
So I mean, the only reason for going to that distance of, what is it, 2.5 miles?
Yeah.
Is because that's where the land's at?
That's where the county has land already. That was, yes, a big part of the logic. One of the other things that was pointed out as part of the logic would be that if you did have grain bins and they are something that creates dust and so forth, it might be better to have that a distance away from where residences are or other industrial development.
How many acres do you really need? Because this packet for this one in Seward is 306 acres. I mean, the county only has, what,
Right.
160?
So my frame of reference would be the other grain companies I know that were taking a look at potentially locating here, and just for their, you know, their loop track, they were looking at a quarter section.
Okay.
So I think it depends on how much you want to build in extra, or you just allow for, hopefully over time, there's new opportunities that could develop that they're not necessarily a part of the initial build out. Is how I would look at it anyway.
Question, I guess, that I don't know if you know this now, but how many people would this employ really?
Well, depends again. Okay, like a grain loading facility, they were estimating about 30 to 35. And then I think it depends on how much other activity we can build into the initial thing. So some of the things I would be spending time trying to see if those companies would commit to this would be called third-party logistics companies. So they aren't companies that build things or sell things, they just handle the logistics, you know, so warehousing and, so, for example, Stafford County Flour Mills works with a couple of them like Old Dominion or C.H. Robinson, and I've got contacts there and know that they handle freight in this area. Well, if we gave them a place to handle freight, including on the railroad, would they want to locate here? Those are the kinds of, that's the kind of work I would put myself to work doing.
But you think this study needs to be done before you can really approach anybody, right?
I feel like I have to have something that shows them what we could provide. Yeah, it's that, would you sign a letter of intent saying you would locate here if we can provide this?
It kind of goes to what I said the last meeting, which is half the battle is inventorying what you have so you can make that presentation.
I guess my only thing, looking at this, and, you know, just I'm not sure what it costs to take a railroad from railroad tracks 2.5 miles. I'm gonna guess it's gonna cost you a couple $1 million, $2 to $3 million. Would it not be cheaper to purchase property for $500,000 closer to the railroad tracks?
If you
In the
can-
grand scheme of
If you
it?
can get it, right.
The other thing, I mean, looking at this, you guys need to realize we shut down a main road that leads south out of our town that a lot of trucks use year-round to stay off of our roads.
Yeah.
You know, they jump right down to Old 50 on that dirt road, that half-mile line there.
Would you rather include a site selection study in this, is what you're saying?
Well, I mean,
Because they can do that kind of thing. They can give you the pros and cons of alternate possibilities. And so, you know,
right.
you would have to factor that in, but, you know, then you get site A, you know, here's
You know, I mean, if you
pros
go
and
across,
cons and estimated costs, and it really may not be, you would, I think, break that out from doing preliminary engineering. You wouldn't actually do the preliminary engineering until you were settled on a site. But these companies do that kind of analysis too.
I'm just thinking there's ground closer to the tracks that, you know, and maybe it's not right in St. John, not right straight south, but east or west. You know, I'm pretty sure some of them people, even at $3,000 an acre, would be more than happy to take $500,000 for dry ground.
Well, okay,
Part of
so
it.
the circles that are on there are the circles that are literally irrigation circles. That's just
Right.
doodles to,
Right.
you know.
But what I'm saying is even moving a mile west of town or a mile east of town on some of that other ground that may not be, I mean, I don't know what irrigated ground's going for, but I still think you could buy irrigated ground cheaper than you could buy railroad track for 2.5 miles.
Not that it couldn't be,
And part of it too is what you're wanting is to be right by 50 and 281, right? I mean, that's
right,
kind
you
of
wanna be
the-
close to highways, you know, cause there's part of the, I suppose, site selection, you know, they would trade off, well, you might not spend as much money on railroad, but you might have to spend more money on highway to access the location. You know, every site's gonna have its trade-offs. You get out into this area east of town, and I know that CGV, for example, looked at a couple of these locations on the north side of the tracks, but then you're dealing with a lot of sand hills, and the dirt work was the expensive part in that one. You end up spending a whole lot more on that kind of stuff. And accessibility. So there might be some possibilities here looking like west of town. There might be.
But that could be included in the study.
We could do a site selection if that's what you wanna, you know, the direction you'd rather take it.
Well, what do you think? 'Cause would that be something that'd be worth doing?
Well, it might, okay, so maybe I should throw this one out at you. Would you be willing to talk with the county commission directly? Would you entertain that type of, would that be, I mean, useful, do you think? Because what I hear from them is they see the practicality in using land that they've got. Especially if it's kind of looked at as one of the expenses they're gonna have to incur logically. They, I think, see logic in working with something they've already got.
They thought, they're all in favor for paying half of this study and having it right there is what they have in mind.
What's the study again?
It would,
How much?
40,000 is what I think we could get, what we need for that amount, I think.
So what are you asking from us? Is that the full amount?
We
Or is it
would
worth how,
split the cost of it,
between us and the county?
yeah.
I mean, with it being at the junction and not like in St. John, I mean, I'd see more of it between Maxwell, Stafford, St. John, and the county, 4 ways, 10,000 apiece. I mean, we talked about this last time, Carolyn, like when you were at the last meeting. I was wanting something more like in town or where they'd be close to in our city limits where we could benefit from selling. I mean, most of our revenue comes from electricity. I wanted to sell electricity, provide water, you know, make money off something that was that big so we can put back towards our infrastructure. That's the way I'm looking at it
Yeah.
personally. I don't really see a whole lot of gain for our citizens, I guess, with it being out there. I mean, as far as how much money we'd make it, employ a few people.
You'd get probably more from the housing and the retail that goes along, even with the construction period, you know. You might get your 20,000 back just in that.
That studies though, you're not talking about site selection, that included in that, that's just specifically studying that area right by the highway.
What they've told me is that they'll work with a budget we have and we'll be able to basically pick our priorities. What I see is needed for, if we were to go for a build grant in particular, and I think that there is an element of it in a different way too for the EDA grant, but a cost benefit analysis is part of also what they require. So it will be an economic study that says for every dollar of public investment, how many dollars of private return, you know, investment are you leveraging with that? And I think the guideline is $15 of private investment for every $1 of public investment. So if you were to get a $3 million grant, you're getting a $45 million level of private investment, which is not terribly off from a brain loading facility. So cost benefit analysis, the site selection or preliminary engineering, and then especially if it's a build grant, it is outside of my expertise to fill out that application myself. Even like this one is our Health and Human Services grant, and I don't think it's as detailed as the transportation one was. And I did go to someone who had experience in this program to get help when we did that too, so.
Carolyn, you said that the county commissioners wanted to speak with us.
They
regarding this,
didn't
or-
know, you're asking, what I'm trying to reconcile is some different ideas of, you know, should we be considering alternative sites with the idea that they seem to be interested in particular in a site already. Is it useful for the two you know, instead of me translating, I'm just asking if you might find that to be worthwhile.
I guess you know, you can't complain about not being able to get people to town and not put the money into it. But one of the biggest things, like Marcia said, is getting out of town. You know, that's taking away one of the roads going south out of town, and we try to get truck traffic to go out on. And I guess I just have a really hard time believing that you can run a train all the way down their tracks and everything, and not cost more than what you could actually buy a circle right beside the tracks for. I guess I realize that takes away from, you know, the tax base. There's no more circle right there, you know, a little bit of the
Yeah.
project, but I don't know.
But if you're putting a $40 million
That's true. That's
plant
true.
there, I mean,
You're right.
your tax base isn't gonna change with one circle being gone.
You're right.
That was my only thing, even if you had to pay up and give them $5,000 or $6,000 an acre for their circle, I still think you would be money ahead than spending $2 or $3 million just on railroad tracks for 2.5 miles. But I don't know what it costs to build railroad either, but I bet it's not cheap.
I don't either, but I just,
You know, and
you have any idea? I mean, it kind of.
It's probably, I think it's around $2 million a mile.
Just,
yeah,
I
so
was gonna say, I think we did 10 miles at 12 million, but 2 million a mile.
So,
So,
I mean, you're
you know,
gonna have
part of it might play
$5 million.
into, okay, do you wanna allow for, I don't know, like, if you had an expanse beyond something directly adjacent to the track. Again, there's logic both ways. I'm not necessarily advocating strong one way or the other, but, you know, so, for example, both Great Bend and Garden City had a lot of success in, just warehousing wind turbines, you know? And Garden City would say, you know, that has fueled in turn the hotel industry and, you know, so, which is in the city. If we had a level of activity, you might be able to justify additional businesses growing from it.
I don't understand how grants work exactly, but would this be a deal breaker with us getting a grant, with them having to spend that much more money to go out here or not? You know, we're talking, whether if another city had one right next to their town, you know, they're gonna save $2 million by giving it to them. Or two.
Well, I think it's a matter of what kind of plan you put together, whether you're saying, you know, with this plan, the advantages are, we can house wind turbines, let's just, you know, let's throw that out. I mean, it all depends on what you have assimilated, or assembled as your advantages for the particular plan you're putting forth. I mean, I guess another way of looking at it is just like EDA told me, they'd rather fund a $100,000 study, in part, because they see it as generating, if you've got that kind of project you're putting that kind of money into, you've got more economic activity that you're ultimately generating with that than a smaller project. So I think it's not just a measure just exactly of what the grant amount is. It's more a matter of how good's your plan that you're putting forth and what's it going to stimulate.
And even if we did this, there's no guarantee that this would ever go in. This could be 20,000 that we just, it's gone. You may never get it back because nothing may never happen and you may never draw any revenue off of it. So it's one of them things you need to be aware of, that
It's a risk, yeah.
it's a risk. It's a
Yeah.
$20,000 gamble.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's, you know, not something that you know is gonna happen in 1 year either.
Right.
So kinda like no different than the housing grant we applied for last summer and didn't get. Well, we've gotten a review of it and they've told us what we could do to improve it, to submit it again in 2020. So you don't always get them on your first try, but it doesn't mean that your opportunity is dead at that point either. So, you know, this'll be a long-term project no matter what. I mean, even if we submitted something successfully in 2020, which would be amazing, but, you know, even at that, you're still looking at a cycle before construction would begin, would be at least 2021, and probably not done, you know, online until 2022. I mean, that's like everything clicking along, you know, we need to look at it as a long-term project.
I don't wanna be quick to say no, you know, but, just have to look into it more, I guess, and ask more people what they think again.
It might be advantageous to have a public city-county meeting. I asked Carolyn this the last time we talked, I don't know if it's ever been done, but it's done in a lot of other counties.
I don't think you're wrong. I think we definitely need to make a meeting with the county commissioners and invite the public and have an open discussion about it.
You could just have a special county city at a different time, away from everybody else's normal.
That's what I'm saying. I think that would be best, and, you know, get it out so that the citizens, you know, I mean, if we spend 20,000, we're spending our taxpayers' money. And, you know, they need to be able to voice their concerns, or if they're for it or against it.
Otherwise, Carolyn almost becomes a negotiator between
Right, right.
the
And
city
won't be
and
here
county.
Carolyn, what all does the RAL campus, what it provide? I mean, when you said the wind turbines, Is,
Well,
is
I
that what
look at
that
it
is?
as like, a port is a public access point to transportation modes. So you don't really need a public point to get onto your highways. But, you know, like the railroad, for example, mainline railroad comes through Stafford County, but there's no place that it stops in Stafford County. There's no business that has siding currently. So you have no access point to that. And even if you did have like a single company, like say, you know, a co-op, that a lot of them do, whether they're unit car loading facilities or your old traditional just country elevators, they are the ones that have the right to use that. It's not something that every business in the area has the ability to enter there and put freight on and assemble it there. Airport's kind of the same thing, you know, like the companies that use those runways don't own the runways, they lease access to it, and the public is able to enter the airline or airway transportation system because there's a public point of entry there. And similarly, that's what this would be for the rail system. If we had a public port, you know, it would be a public entity that gives many companies the opportunity to lease access to that rail. So part of this too is the work with BNSF to make sure that if you build it, they want to serve it. My discussions with them, I've, you know, been on a freight advisory committee with KDOT for the last several years and had opportunity to interact with the kinds of people that manage the railroads. Generally, they're moving toward the idea of unit car, you know, so 100 train movements, 100 car movements of trains. If you can assemble 100 cars, they'll generally be pretty quick to serve that. And that's what they're doing with the grain. The part that is less, I don't know, common outside of Kansas City is the more like intermodal stuff. But that's where you'd be working with like trying to get a C.H. Robinson or an Old Dominion or a Hub Group type company to be that company that assembles those multiple, you know, so you maybe have 8 cars from Stafford County Flour Mills and 5 cars from Superior Essex and Hoisington and, you know, on and on until you have your critical mass to create the movement.
Well, I think it's definitely a big decision. I like the idea of getting everybody together, the county commissioners and us. I mean, we can do that where we can legally all speak. It's one meeting or not?
You'd have to have a chair like you do now. I mean, I could look at the mechanisms other counties use, but you adjourn out of your meeting and then you go into the special city council meeting, and a lot of times, you know, it'd probably be advantageous to meet like every 3 months for a city and county this size.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
serious. You know, there's other things to talk about other than this. There's, you know, you got fire issues that we had, and the FR stuff came up. I mean, it's other things that could be discussed.
We really don't have at any of the levels, I don't think, any of the cities or the county or whatever, a true, you know, master strategic plan. You know, even like with this housing stuff, I'm kind of winging it when they ask, is this consistent with your housing plan? Well, I can point to the fact that there's policy that we have, you know, neighborhood revitalization, and I'll talk about the fact that you created a land bank with the intent of, you know, developing parts of the city, but it's not, you know, like a formal written strategic plan that I know some cities do.
I think,
And so I don't know if that's what you're kind of nodding toward with the idea of kind of a system.
The only time you guys that I know of that the city has gone to the county about anything is related to the city park. And in 5, 6 years or
And we
whatever
didn't
it
even
is.
really go to them, we just sent a letter.
I mean, it's just kind of shocked me that there's never been any kind of other cooperation on other issues. And maybe that's just how you guys function. with the county.
Well, I feel like this time may be kind of right to do some of this stuff. I feel like there's maybe some, I don't know, good sentiment right now about the way things are. Maybe it's just the projects I'm kind of working on, but, for example, well, a couple things. I don't know if any of you guys had if you saw it on Facebook or whatever, I know that it was pushed around a little bit there, but the Kansas Journal of Civic Leadership, which I know not everybody reads, but it was like a 12-page article on our town's effort to redo the store. It ended up being their #1 article of the year. It's gotten picked up by some other news sources, and the Today Show is coming to St. John in a couple weeks. I kid you not.
Really?
Really?
Haircut, Marsh.
We'll be on that one, sorry.
Too bad 60 minutes, huh?
Could be a time to test out
Bad
the
day.
dog suit.
Yeah, I did say, I heard somebody say, well, we gotta tell everybody to go to the grocery store on February 12th. That's the day they'll be here.
This is the coursework Jamie's learning now, leadership classes.
So, we've got the K-State College of Architecture working on our, model house. Well, I got an email from them today that they had been working with a project in Kansas City for the past year with the intent of using it as a solar decathlon. It's been ongoing for a while. So essentially it's a project where they try to make it an energy efficient house, and they have to actually measure it, and it's part of a university. They're in competition with other universities on whether this is the best design for energy efficiency or whatever. Well, they haven't been able to build their house in Kansas City because of complications with getting permits or something of the like, or some of the HUD funding that they're getting or whatever. So I think they're going to redesignate it and make St. John their focus project. And I think that's kind of cool that we'll have that kind of activity going on here. We've
Carol,
got Bike Across Kansas coming this summer. There's just some things that I feel like are kind of fueling some pride and enthusiasm to get out there and try something.
Sorry to interrupt here. If any of you folks want to go see one of those houses over here at the Annex building, we got pictures of them, and you can actually vote on which house you like best. Vote on it, and they'll build that one house here. It looks pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
They're using input from the public, and then
Right.
they intend to take the best of each of the house, and they have a separate design but we've really tried to we've had citizens come to some of these kind of, in a sense, focus groups to try to make something that people would be pleased with here. And
I guess, John, figure out what we need to do to get with the county.
I think you have to adopt a resolution, but
Why don't you
Don't quote
work
me.
on that for us? I think that's the direction we probably need to go, is get a meeting with the commissioners and invite citizens and stuff, and get everybody together so we can discuss this. I think it's big enough that
Okay.
we shouldn't do it just
Okay.
on Wednesday.
Can we go ahead and get,
very cool.
can you speak with county commissioners and get with this office?
Yes.
And then we'll coordinate everything, and then we'll plan on having a joint meeting and then open to the public.
Okay. Do you intend for me to find the date, or do you want the
Just
clerks
work
to
with the
come in?
office in here, work with either Jamie or Pam.
That,
and
or
we'll
let
figure out
Nita
a,
and Jamie get together
Yeah.
and,
I'll see what it
Set a date.
takes to call one.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
okay? All
I'll
right,
do that. Thank you.
great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one.
Hey, Jeff. Can we sell electric utilities to Raindrop? Do we sell them right now? No, but we sell it to Sunfire. So like that quarter that, the Burning Spare.
It's split in half. Territory to the south, we could serve the first half a mile in between Prairie and West Street. And that's it.
Everything
But
east
we
of
could
there.
feed on the west side of the road, and we go clear to Rixon's, over to about what would be 30th Street, which would be the fence line between English Meadows and Jack Moody's. up to the south side of the highway. Then we feed north up there, up to Cordwell's, but that, it's kind of broken up. The map is a little strange, but we have the area in between West Street, basically in between West Street and Northwest 30th. I believe up to Fairchild's driveway and south, clear down to the old highway. So we have an area in there about 2.5, 3 miles wide and about 1 mile deep, or just a little bit more. Now going east, we have to go, we can serve down to the first half a mile in between those two, but not on either side of it, but we do serve the motel and the little gas plant, but we don't serve Rinky and we don't serve Steinmatz's fertilizer.
Right, right.
So,
So if they put up an electric irrigation system at Bernie Spears, could we serve it?
no.
No, okay.
It's just on far enough south on the south of the half a mile
Okay.
line that we won't serve it.
Anything north of that?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange cut in there, but yeah.
I was just wondering about
Yeah, but west of West Street, we have
Good
more
deal.
room than we do anywhere.
it. Okay.
So,
The challenge with
She's done. Go ahead, right after her.
Not necessarily.
industrial,
do that.
you know, like serving an industrial user of electric is that the rates are so much higher than what they would get if they were in Midwest Energy's territory, or if you wanna look at it that way, alternate locations and
oh
other.
yeah, we can't even play ball with
It's not very appetizing to them, yeah.
not for us, cause I don't think we can get it down where it's reasonable.
Right, right.
I mean,
I
you
think our
have to work
strategy,
on
our
it pretty
strategy
hard.
needs to be like, what is the city gonna be best competitive? And it's probably figuring out how to capture sales tax in the increased economic activity. So one of my ways of being able to frame this is, in 2017, I've talked with Jamie that the city took in $70,000 in sales tax that year. That was without a grocery store and no construction. 2018, took in 120,000. That was with a little bit of grocery store and mostly a construction period. And then we were on track for about 150,000 this last year. So we can just generate more activity. That, I think, is maybe where the sweet spot might be for the city in sales tax. If we can, and if we could find the kinds of businesses that can succeed with the like if we had constant traffic coming in and out of a facility south of town, would a hotel work in our town? It's probably not gonna work on it as it is right now, but if you had a predictable amount of business moving through this area, could it succeed then? That might be the kind of thing that this town would stand to, I don't know, do well and benefit and take some tax revenue in with.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, we're moving on. Letter of support for Carolyn Dunn in economic development.
Are you guys okay with Mark doing the letter of support to
That's fine.
You wanna draft it?
Do we need to vote on that, John?
I think if we had a consensus, then Mark was on it.
Consensus?
Okay, everyone's okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Carolyn, if you would draft that and then get it back to the office, it would be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
All right.
So I guess we gotta go on
Okay,
the bank.
going to go into land bank. I will adjourn this regular meeting of city council and move into land bank.
Call land bank meeting to order. You guys all looked over the resolution 2020-002.
The only question I have is it really 002 or is it really the first resolution by the land bank? Because I don't know.
I think it's probably the first one by the land bank.
Okay, so it needs to be 001.
I'm just reading what was put in the minutes here,
So if we could make that change and then
the change to
there
the
is a
resolution.
slight spacing error on the second to last paragraph. It should just be tabbed down on there
Okay.
with those changes, though. I think it's ready to go. And the reason why we did this as opposed to a contract is because you guys are donating the property or properties, and so that there's not consideration that would allow us to, if we were selling it, and they were providing some kind of consideration for that sale, then we could do a contract, but this resolution is, I mean, it is you guys donating the property subject to them getting the grant. And then as soon as the grant is given, then we can prepare the deeds.
Is everybody good with that?
Yep.
I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-001 with the changes that John mentioned on the spacing and stuff.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. I don't think we have any other land bank business at this time, so I entertain a motion to adjourn land bank.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Land bank meeting is adjourned.
Reopen this meeting of regular city council. Okay, we'll start with department heads. Jeff.
I don't really have anything unless you got some questions for me. We're just, since we've kind of gotten shorthanded, we're trying to get the street signs done. We've been hustling around and calling the locates in. As soon as they come in, we've been stabbing them and been trimming a few trees, but most of it's been concentrated on some office stuff that we've had, some reprogramming some meters, getting the signs done, some of that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Anybody have any questions for Jeff? Jeff, I wanted to pass on to you and your crew. We've been getting quite a few comments regarding the street signs. It's all positive. They're very
Thank
happy
you
with
very
it,
much.
so
You
thank
guys have been working really hard at them, trying to make everything good and pretty so that everybody likes it, so.
Good. Okay, moving on, public utilities. Jason.
I just got a couple of things. Talked to Ross, and I talked to, who did I talk to? You? Okay, well, I sit there and talked to these two fellows about the truck parking out there, and what I did is I just asked them if they thought if I could just take a stake out there and mark the 100-foot going west like we went out and talked about, and then just stake it there in the right-of-way ditch, and just leave it, just mark just that, and then that way if we don't get nothing done this year, we don't have to worry about mowing it, and let the gentleman who's plowing that up just go ahead and let him work it all, so we don't have to worry about mowing nothing, and spending the money on the diesel and having the time, the labor to mow it. Just let him finish doing it up if we don't get it, if nothing is decided on that truck, or the truck parking. So I just marked that one post. It wouldn't take that much to mark it, I didn't think, so I mean, we could always whip it out if whenever you decided to, but I would think a lot more on mowing that and spending the money on the diesel and stuff like that.
What'd you say the measurements were?
From what we were talking about, it was 100 foot. From where the other one farther west of where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100 foot further from where
To the west, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's a good idea, as long as we get that marked right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's just marked there with a red stake.
Figured you could kind of observe it in your mind, we wouldn't have to do it anymore to it unless you want to go ahead and destroy it.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
And then, the other thing is I got two quotes. I got this one a little bit more, better, I guess I would say, a little bit more refined on this one. I'll let you look through it, and when you have questions, I'd be hopefully happy to answer any of them.
I guess there was some questions about it, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the last meeting. I was home with the flu all week, which I would have traded this meeting for that anytime, but this kind of started off as a constant for the last 2.5 years. We've had nothing but constant problems with that lift station out there. That lift station pumps all the sewage from town up into the ponds. It was put in 1967. We've done parts and pieces and, just everything we could over the years to keep it running. But it's at the point now where it's in need of a major overhaul of some sort. The pumps, we've brought everything from t-shirts to chunks of concrete to a lot of that stuff, and that's the reason why we wanted to put the weir box and the bar screen on the intake. But the pumps are wore out. The check valves are wore out. There's about $25,000 or $30,000 just worth of material without any labor to repair it in the state that it's in. So that's kind of why we started looking at this when we had problems a year ago last summer. it would be a year ago this coming summer, why, we shut the pump station down to get some chunks of concrete out of it. We can't shut the valves off. Jason took a waist deep bath. I mean, because we can't shut it down, it sits right beside the wet well. So, you know, on top of being that, we've had, you know, we blowed some fuses here a while back, and we notified the state that we'd had that problem. Every time that it backs up, it goes in, it has a very good chance of going into the creek, and the creek is a no-no. So, you know, we try to stay on top of it, but the equipment's just wore out. I mean, it needs to be looked at, being replaced really bad. So, and it's served you 53 years, so.
So the one quote from JCI is that them coming out and doing all the work? And this one is you guys doing all the work?
Yes.
But this would be for a brand new, to replace everything out there
Yes.
at the sewer pump?
What you want to understand is that quote from JCI is a flight pump. It's a submersible pump like sat on the 5th Street pump station. Those others are centrifugal pumps. And they sit in a pit out there about 15 feet in the ground, and all the valves accordingly. This would completely get rid of that downhole pump station. It would put everything submersible where it could be pulled from the top of the ground.
So this would be the better
Oh, by far,
alternative than
yeah,
this
by
one, is
far.
what you're saying?
Yeah,
Which is also by far the cheapest,
yeah.
because this
When
one
I-
doesn't have labor.
When I sit there and talk to him too on and see with the one on, Smith and Lovelace, just to get 2 pumps was 35,000, as you seen that. And I sit there and he came by today and asked about how everything was. And so he asked and about it, and I said, well, I told him what the main price was that, and he says, I'll get it, I could get it in writing, and I'll sit there and throw another pump in for the price of that 66,000, so we'd have 3 on
So we'd
JCI.
have one spare.
So we'd have a spare for the price of the 66,000 to get the 2 new ones out there.
Pumps are a little
With
over
JCI, we'd get
$7,000
three for the
apiece.
price of that plus the labor.
Right.
And that's quite a job to reconfigure that, because we have to bypass everything that we've got and still get back into that first pond.
I did take
So-
pictures, by the way, she's got them on the.
The way it is now, see that pump station, I don't know, and I would have to only imagine that pump station is got a diameter of about 6 feet down in, and you crawl down in, it's about 15 feet in the ground. Number 1 pump here, number 2 pump here, and they pump into a Y. And from there, they go east and they go up into that first pond, is how they go out when they kick on and go through a bar screen and go out into that first pond. So what they essentially have to do is they would have to build these to fit the wet well. There's a 18-foot wet well west of there that goes in between where that pump station is and the gate. And they would go in there and reconfigure that to set those rods and drop those pumps in, and then bypass all of that whole pump station and take it all out. Then everything would be controlled on a small panel like that one is that's out there. There'd be nothing, we'd have to not crawl down in the ground for anything, everything would be out in the open. So, those pumps sit on a stainless rod and they slide down, they go in just like a pitless adapter on a water pump. That's how they work, just exactly, they grind it, they push it out.
Council, what do you think?
It's a pretty good bite to swallow, I know.
Yeah, a lot of numbers to look at tonight.
It really is.
I mean, right.
I guess my other question, is this coming out of the sewer replacement fund? I mean, where would the money,
That's about the only place, I mean, there's enough money in the replacement fund to take care of it.
I mean, I was looking.
We also have some maintenance to do on the camera stuff that we've done, but we haven't had a chance to go through it. We haven't heard back from those guys at Goddard, so.
So the panels, like pump start panels, Jeff, or what are they? I mean,
They're just a complete submersible pump. I mean, they have the start and everything in them.
right,
You know, contactors in the panels,
yeah.
and then the relays. Everything else is in the hole in the pump. So there's nothing down in the ground at all.
Different from what we have right now. I mean, like what we have right now won't jive the controls.
Not even close. No, the controls are down in the hole down there. Did he show you the pictures of the cabinet?
No, it's all like, that's what I
I've got
said,
them
I
on,
took 'em, that's
I've
all.
got them on my phone. I sent them to Jamie. I don't know whether she had them, or I thought she did.
I didn't think you get the ones with the inside, but she should have had
That's a
those.
PC cut. That's going down in the tube. That's where the pumps are, right there. There should be some pictures down inside. Those are the pumps, the check valves. This is all in a little 6-foot round too. There should be some of the panel, I think, Pam, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the inside panels, the ones you already gave
So the
her.
panel's just
I
scary.
don't know where they're at.
Go back one, please. Those are bubbler alternators. They kick those pumps on and off a vacuum in the hole where they tell what the depth, they work off of the height of the water in the hole by vacuum. There's two alternating switches on the inside, an ice cube relay and then a time switch, and change those from one to the other. Works off, there should have been a picture of the mercury switches somewhere in there. Work off the high and the low level.
This is the last one, the next one is the video.
That's all you
Yeah,
had?
but go back, yeah, I didn't, like you said, you already gave her the ones.
Yeah, I thought I
Hey,
said.
go back clear to the first one.
Scoot over there where I could see a little bit.
All right, go back to the second, or the one, just go back one, couple more. All right, see, this part's what they were gonna do instead of going down in here. They're gonna sit there and get a saw, or they're gonna or cut it, and they're gonna cut this whole big square out right here, and then they're gonna sit there and put one of those lids that go up like out of here. And then that's what they're gonna do and then they'll probably put the rod about right in there, and one right in there, and that's what they're gonna slide that down, then they'll just have that lift.
That's
And
an
then we
18
won't have to go down in here in confined space.
That's an
either no more.
18-foot wet well. That's where all the sewage comes in, to there, right there. And the vacuum hoses go down in
Yeah,
it to
just
read
people
the
would
depth.
be going down there if this is going on. And another thing they have over JCI, over the Smith and Lovelace is they even have a SCADA in there, what you read there, and have a caller for calling and a dialer in there too, so we won't, if it even gets up to where we want it, it'll start calling and get somebody out there
We
too.
just put a Wi-Fi on it, and
Mhm.
call you anytime,
It's through,
anywhere. Then we have notification before it happens. It's kinda like the light on the box out there on 5th Street.
Yeah.
Only it'll dial you when it starts doing that.
So if I read this right, at the end of 12/31 of 19, I believe we've got roughly 269,000
That would be
sewer
close, yeah, that would be close.
Sewer
In the sewer
replacement.
replacement.
So, I mean, there are some funds there if we decide to move forward with doing it.
The nice thing about this time of the year is that we have about a third of the water that we do in the summer. Our flow's pretty low right now. The pumps don't work near like they do in the summertime, but it doesn't take long to fill the road when they quit, I can tell you that much. It's just something we try to prevent as much as we can.
We're gonna be discussing that strategic plan here after a while. Is there any, where you'd wanna use the sewer replacement money anywhere in that plan? Like that ain't gonna mess up anything if
The
it's at
only other thing that
60,000?
we've got would be any repairs on what we've seen on the cameras, and we haven't been able to look at all of them. We know we have some repair in there. How much, we don't know yet. That's the only other thing that we would have.
Okay. I'm just saying,
Yeah, sure. But that's the only other cost that would amount to anything. We know we've got some problems under the school and a few places like that that we really need to take care of, but as far as what else is on there, we don't know,
yeah.
so.
I guess for future, you told me you just got these yesterday, but it'd be like nice to get these if we can on Fridays, when you guys I know you guys
We
can help it
worked really hard to
sometimes.
get them in at this,
I
you
just
know.
tell these guys like the Thursday
I didn't even know we were having a council meeting tonight, that's how far behind I was.
I just got these tonight, it was left to read.
Yeah, it's kinda crazy.
Yeah, I try, that's what I say.
And you don't have to jump today, you just need to look at them, because we need to do something.
Why don't we go ahead and put this on old business, and we'll just give council time to digest discuss everything, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
We'll try and look over some of that other stuff and see if we can give you some kind of an idea what kind of cost we're gonna have on those other repairs.
Just a copy of this, 'cause
You know, if we'd have never cambered them, we wouldn't have to
because
worry
he was
about it,
questioning
but,
it last meeting as well, and I think it's
I mean, out of sight, out of mind, you know.
Yep.
$60,000 is,
But we
Okay.
haven't heard back from them, so we don't really know, you know, what we're headed for on this other yet either, so. Anyway, we'll get in touch with them, we'll get that straightened out before next meeting.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? Okay, moving on, Grant Administrator Lisa Cornwell, approve phase 1 of SRTS.
So basically, we just need to approve what she done so far for the Safe Route to School program, so she can complete that grant and, like, closed it. That's how I understand it, but,
it doesn't cost us anything.
And it doesn't lock us into
It
it.
doesn't lock us into
Right.
anything at all, it's just allowing her to go ahead and complete everything.
Correct.
So, I mean, everybody good with it?
You gonna make a motion, Kyle? The first one?
For your first motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the phase 1 of SRTS.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. All right. Did we hear anything else from Lisa? Okay, good. All right, moving on, Police Chief, Chief Adams.
Just have a couple things. One, I guess I need to approach the council. I haven't done anything yet because we've just kind of, we need to start working on it, but it's on the dog pound. We had deficiencies before I took over, that the state had come in and said, okay, you know, you have a year to fix this, and we'll be back to do it. And they were simple little projects. It was paint the rust in the dog pound, and then at the bottom on all three sides, the door on both sides on each one, has to be metal down there. There's metal on the outside, and then the chain link comes down. Well, the chain link bends up, and so they're worried that a dog is going to catch themselves on that and rip themselves open. So we need to put another piece of metal on there and squash it in there, and just weld that in there and then paint it. And that'll cover, if we do that on all three sides in each of the 4 kennels. That was what we had to do. Problem is now, after budget was already submitted, I don't have the money, but that microburst that came through, that tore up some stuff out there on the south side of town, none of the doors work. We fight when we get a dog in there to try and get them to latch. They won't latch in. The whole thing got shifted in the wind, and so nothing is squared up. So trying to get a dog in and then get kennel doors shut, all of that, the slide lock going into each one, you've got to stick your foot under and lift it, but you don't want to lift too high like I did. And there was a biting dog in there from across from the school, came off the hinges. So now I got this biting dog and I'm by myself and I'm trying to hold this door and get it back into the slide without getting my fingers bent through the chain link fence on the dog. But I don't have the money. I don't know if that's something that we can look at of pulling out of general fund. I know I need to get some bids and we need to figure out, but those things are going to have to be fixed. And I say that, don't quote me on it, but I want to think May is when the state, I got an email that May they're going to be coming back in to do their inspection again. If we fail the inspection, which now we have a few more problems, I would have put that in the budget to redo that, but we had already turned that in and everything was done. So those need to be fixed. The other thing is, while fixing it, I would like to change for officers' safety and health. Behind each kennel, if you guys have everybody been out to the kennels and seen them, there's that big box that's back behind that has a door open to each one, so the dogs can go into shelter, and we put hay in there in the winter months to do that. Problem is all of them open up from the top, and I would like to, if we can get the kennels fixed and redo it, take those off and put a drop down or a lift up on the end, because I know me as an officer, when we got to clean that hay out after each dog, between the feces and the urine in there, the only way to get it out is basically to reach down there and pick it up and pull it out. And I would much rather use a rake and scrape it out the back, just because, I mean, You know, it's nasty. And that stuff that had been in there for a long, long time. Dale was nice enough, went down there and he worked on it. We opened them up and we aired them out and we got all that cleaned out. But I would like, if we're gonna have to redo and fix some stuff, and it's not gonna be tearing it down and redoing, it's gonna be trying to square it back up and weld, but it broke some of the brackets down there on the concrete. It's just gonna be squaring it up, getting the doors fixed. I don't think we need anything new, other than that back I would like to change.
So you wanna cut those backs out so they open and close, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they open from the top, which are really hard,
Yeah.
because each one, you've gotta fight them real hard to get them. I would like to be able to change that and put a solid roof on the top on the back, because they're only about this tall. But put a solid roof on the top and have the opening come in from the end, which would be the north side, and be able to open them up to where we can take a rake and pull that hay out, and at least let it dry or something before we pick it up. But the only option we have is to pull that off and the officer to reach down there and pick it up with their hands and all. And if we've had a dog in there for a couple days, even overnight, you know. And the other thing too is we get a dog that has fleas or anything like that, it all stays in that bedding. And then the officer picks it up and then they get it. So
You need it more.
that's the only thing I would like to change. But I'll get some cost on that. But like I said, I don't think it's gonna be a lot, just because I think everything else will work. We just gotta square it back up and re-weld some stuff on there.
Insurance didn't cover any of that.
No, I brought up insurance, was told, you know, it probably isn't gonna cover, because there was some issues there already. That, you know, they were working not great, but now that has really come over and you know, we can't get the doors to shut, because they, you know, when you try to shut the door will hit the center post. So you've got to try and squeeze and pull this one over to get the door shut. And we really only have one workable kennel in there right now, and it's the second one in. And that's really the only workable kennel that we can get the door shut on. Just kind of a food for thought. I'll come back to you guys and we'll see. You know, like I said, I don't know. I have some money in the pound fund. Luckily, we've had enough donations of food that I don't think that we're gonna need to spend all that money on food. So we might have enough. I just wanted to bring it to council's attention that it might be more than what I have in my pound fund. I don't know.
Bring some costs to council,
Okay.
give some estimates. We can see what we can do about pulling some money out of the general fund.
Okay.
All right.
Alan, when you write tickets for dogs and stuff like that, where does that money go?
All that money goes into general fund. All the money from dog tickets and the in-pound fees, because they pay a $150 ticket when we write tickets, and we have wrote quite a few. And then they also have, what is it, Pam? Is it $25 a day or 20? 25. Then all of that money when they come in and pay. So if their dog was in there for 2 days before they got it, that's $50. Plus then their $150 ticket. All of that goes into general fund. Same with the range.
Why
The
can we
range,
not reappropriate that for stuff like this? Can we do that, John?
That's up to you guys. I mean, that's.
I mean, it only makes sense. I mean,
But the thing is, I mean, once you get that built up to, let's say,
I'm not saying all of it has to go back, but if he's relying on it
Mhm.
for his budget, I mean, the city, they're doing the work, they're maintaining it, they're fixing it, it has to come out of his budget to fix it. Some of that money ought to go back into his budget for that line item to maintain that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying all of it has to, but
no, it makes
You
sense.
could
I
put
just
a
don't want
top
to
on
see.
that.
you could put a top
and
on
we
it when
really
it hits
don't need a lot in there.
$2,000 or whatever.
Yeah, we
Then
really.
you roll the rest back over
It would be
into.
easy to see how much is in the general fund now that, as a result of the dog.
Could always be a transfer at the end of the year, what you don't
Right.
back out of it.
You know, I just think that, you know, they're doing the work, they're writing the tickets, it's all coming from his department, but then it just goes
Yeah, it goes right
back
to
into the general fund. I
right.
mean,
And we don't have a large cost throughout the year for the dog pounds, you know, and that's one of the things that's a complete variable of how many dogs we got. But luckily, we have had quite a few donations of dog food, so I don't think we're hurting on dog food for 2020. Now that I say that, now we're gonna go pick up, but you know, like Tori picked up 17 dogs the last year. You know, I mean, we were just constantly having dogs in there and going, and it's the safety deal for one, but two, just flat out. Then if we don't get all of this fixed and done, then we're gonna fail the inspection. We lose the pound, and then you know, and I know that's a service we provide. You know, fortunate or unfortunate, it's a service we provide in the town, picking up the animals, and we have nowhere else to take them. I mean, other than if we start making trips to Stafford, and they aren't gonna wanna house our dogs, you know, so. Yeah, we're gonna lose the pound if we don't fix the deficiencies, and those were easy fixes. We were gonna wait until it got warm, get them fixed, the state come in, we were good.
I would say get some bids
Yeah.
and
Okay.
we'll take care of it some way.
Okay.
Got
The other thing is I wanted to bring up was the first time possession of marijuana and possession of paraphernalia. I've had 5 drug cases now that I've taken, since I've taken over. I get having methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, any of that going over, because that's all felony anyway, so that's gotta go to the district court, and a second time possession of marijuana, conviction would be a felony, but there's a first time possession of marijuana and paraphernalia that I think we don't have a city ordinance on. It's not in our UPCs, nothing like that. I think that's something that we can hold in our court, and I don't, you know, we were trying to transition apparently before I took over of that the city needed to handle more in their court than going to the county, and that's just one more thing here. For one, if it's a diversion on a first-time deal, we get that money in our diversion fund, and it stays here, and we can, you know, ask the city attorney, and we can use that at our discretion. We have a lot that still goes over to county, but I'm just trying to look at, it's an easy misdemeanor case that we can hold here, and we hold other misdemeanor cases. I mean, I don't think any, you know, no, we can't hear a felony in municipal court. But I think it would be smart for us to have that marijuana and paraphernalia possession charge. We've got the dog, you know, we've done everything else. I don't see why there's any reason why we can't hold at least the misdemeanor charge of a drug possession in our city court. That's just my thoughts on it. I look at, you know, the money. You know, if we hold the court here, try to be self-sufficient on our own court, I think it only makes sense to at least hear that in ours. So, but that's all I got on that. So,
John, you got any thoughts on that?
I mean, I brought it up in the past, and council just didn't seem interested in the past, but
Council, what do you think about it right now?
I think if he's got a dog and he's working and he's doing stuff with it, that's, I mean, part of the reason we have the dog, we need to support him
how many cases do
and move
you
forward
think
with it.
in a year?
well, I don't know. Well, so for this year now, I'm up to two drug cases for this year, and I had 3 last year, just in that short time of being here. So a total of 5 already, just out of me working them. So.
Alan, I guess going back to the, like, well, I can't remember if it was last meeting or the one before, as far as jail time, would that cost us any, the city?
No, because usually on your first time so, and it would only be for simple possession, not if it was your first time and it was over,
If they're carrying around 10 pounds, that's not possession.
yeah, that, you know, when you get to your trafficking and your
Distribution.
distribution and stuff like that, no, all that needs to go through county,
Yeah.
because there will be jail time on this. This here, I believe, if I've read the statute correctly, the first time it's a diversion, a fine, you can suspend a jail time, anything like that. You don't have to necessarily give them jail. And that's what I was saying for the misdemeanor charge of it, you know, it's no different than us hearing a battery case in our court. I mean, that's potential jail time in that too, so.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with it.
And that's something that we need to look at as a court, for our court system is having that money, you know, to take a case. We lost one case of anything. There was going to be jail time. I took it over. We went to the county attorney, and it wasn't the county attorney. It was others that turned it down and said no because we were going to have to pay for it. So we've worked out a deal, but unfortunately that's where we're at. So there is going to be a future now that we do have our own court, and the county attorney, you know, is wanting the cities to be, you know, Stafford has their own money, and So I think looking for 2021, we're going to have to start looking at in the courts budget of having money in there for jail time. You know, it doesn't mean everybody's going to jail, but if something's there and it needs to be done, then it needs to be done. It doesn't need to be go away because we just don't want to deal with it. We don't have the money. That's pretty skate on the legal system, I think. So that's just something in the future we need to start looking at putting money in there. You know, we don't have to have a lot, but you know what? When we thought that one case was going to go, it was going to be 90 days in jail times $45 a day. You know, just for that one, for a habitual violator. You know, but luckily it didn't turn out to be that. We were able to work something else out and go, but it's just something we do. But I think, you know, and John is going to be able to answer that question better since he's the city attorney and the prosecutor on the jail time for a first time marijuana. I mean,
off the top of my head, I don't, it's something I'd have to look
I just
at.
didn't want it to cost them $5,000-$6,000, you
I mean, a
know?
lot of that stuff is, the only thing I can do is make recommendations. I mean, most of the time, the judge is going to abide by recommendations, especially for a first-time offense. But sentencing is her discretion.
which I think she's pretty cognizant of what we have as a city. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. So, you know, and your second time possession, you know, can be charged with a felony. So it'd just be first time possessions, and that would be it.
It's gonna be somebody coming back from Colorado that didn't smoke everything while they were there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
Exactly.
it is 90% of the time.
No.
I guess
30
just
days with
do what you guys need to do to
Yeah.
get it. so
I think
we can
it
do
makes, I think it makes some sense to go ahead and have some type of ordinance regarding that, so. There we go. Okay, moving on. Fire Chief, Chief Sanders.
I don't have anything.
All right, anybody have any things for Michael? Okay, we've got City Administrator Jamie Getty.
We got a call Thursday from Greg saying that since we entered a new contract with Midwest Energy, their formula that they use to calculate our utility bills or our bill from them were wrong. So we actually were overcharged the whole 6 months I've been in the new contract. So with this month bill, we're gonna get around $48,000 credit to our account for those overcharge.
That's a relief
We
from all
knew
the
that
high bills.
85,000 was wrong, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would affect our PCA rate as well for this month. It will be a little bit lower than what it would normally be, but then it will go back up next month. But, yeah.
Hey, it's always nice to be on the receiving end of some bad news.
Doesn't happen very often, but it
It
is
doesn't happen
nice.
very, first time since I've been on.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
That's not good. Anything else, Pam?
Nope, that's the only.
Anybody have any questions for Pam? Moving on, City Attorney John.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, anybody have any questions for John? Okay, moving on to old business. Anybody have any comments, questions, remarks regarding anything on old business? Okay, moving on to new business. Letter of resignation, David Heller.
Make a motion to accept David Heller's resignation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor? Motion carries.
Real quick, I didn't see it till just now. What about the police department policy manual? Did you guys get
Oh,
a
yeah, I
chance?
looked at it, yeah, looks good.
Um,
Not every bit of it, but I glanced through it.
Kyle,
It got turned back to the bookmark.
Did you look at it?
I've looked through some of it and talked with
If
Alan
you
on
guys
some
want-
of it.
Does Kyle want to?
Do you wanna look
through
at it, Kyle, before we approve it, or, I mean, is that some, I mean, you've kinda already enforced the policy, haven't you?
No,
No, you
no, it's
haven't.
just,
You're-
and nobody has read it.
You're waiting on us to
I'm
approve
done, I'm
it.
just waiting on you guys to approve it, to put it into effect, and then I'll get it out to the guys to read. I'm not doing anything effective wise with it right yet.
Did Ross look through it? I mean, did
He
you?
did, I didn't hear anything back from him on it.
It's probably what he's doing right now.
No, I had to go over and pick it up.
I was home this afternoon, so that's what I did this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
You
I
might
mean,
wanna wait till the next meeting, I mean, 2 more weeks is 2 more weeks, if Kyle wants to read it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want look through it.
That's fine, okay.
That's fine.
I think it's gonna take 2 weeks for each guy to read it.
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
said, I've looked through some of it, but not,
All right.
I wanted, I don't know, as far as hiring for the street department, I don't know if I should add that to the agenda or just talk about it, but, Jamie put the ad out that we're looking for somebody in that department. As far as when I start thinking about it, I think it's gonna be really hard to find somebody with the experience that we can afford for that position. My opinion on it was for her to redo the application on Facebook or wherever she puts it out, to where she just writes down, you know, somebody knowledgeable, a good leader, et cetera, that we could send to training for the position. I don't think we'll find somebody that's knowledgeable. I think we'll get more applicants, more options if we go that route. I talked to Phil Nusser with the county, and he said that those guys, they go through KU school. It's called Kansas LTAP, and I think we should look into that for that position specifically. So I don't know if you guys are open to that, or just let it be, or what. I just think we'll have more options that way.
Can we let it just sit for a little while and then see what we get, then if we don't get anywhere, then, I mean, how long?
Oh, yeah.
How long do you think we should,
I wonder if we've had,
I mean,
applicants, you know?
We have a couple,
Yeah,
yeah.
just need to look through them.
should we give it a little more time,
Yeah.
look at what we got, then plan
maybe look,
accordingly?
see what next meeting looks like, see what we've
I
got.
would imagine most of them that you get probably aren't qualified to begin with, but you're saying they may look a little bit more appetizing.
Why don't you put that on, have that for
Looking at
the,
it.
next
I mean,
meeting,
I just-
put it under old
I
business.
think there's
It's-
really good guys that do really good at being foremans and leaders, and that are responsible, knowledgeable. It's just, I think we're zoning out a lot of guys that could be potentially good at that job with the proper training, is what all I'm saying.
We'll put that under
So,
old
yeah.
business for next meeting, and then we'll discuss it then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next item under new business, Federal Railroad Administration's train horn rule. I was approached by Mr. Roth, who is here. Chris, would you like to speak on this, please?
Well, it's interesting, you know, coming to a town and you got this horn blowing at 2:30 in the
I don't know
morning.
what that is.
And
It's been on there for a
it's
long
not
time.
just because it's an annoyance, it is an annoyance. But what it also is, it's a lot of, I've talked with a lot of folks here in town, just out of casual thing, and they say, man, it's terrible, it's horrible, I'm tired of it at night, especially when I'm trying to sleep. You know, and that was probably one of the best things, I think. It's also a health issue, if you think about it. You waking up at 2:30 in the morning, listen to a train come rumbling through with a horn blasting. Sleep deprivation, it's not good for your heart. It's really not. So you need some time to rest, and then you can't get back to sleep, and then you're groggy in the morning. You know, things like that. So there's a lot of factors into it. So I decided to look it up online, and it was kind of interesting to note that there are 412 cities that have banned horn blowing between certain hours and certain hours. You know, so like, for example, 10 o'clock at night till 7:30 in the morning, sorry, no horns. But to add to that is that our crossing streets that we have across the tracks, a lot of them have gates now. That's a big safety thing for that railroad institution there, that it's up to the city, where the city can vote on it and say, hey, here's our letter, please take us off your list here. We don't want you to come through here at this time and this time blowing horns. So, I have spoken to a lot of residents. Now, some of them say, well, I've been here for 30 years. And I said, well, where do you live? Right next to the tracks, really? And it doesn't bother you one bit? You gotta be kidding me, you know?
Well, I mean, I live a block from the tracks. You get
Sleep right through
you
it.
get used to the
Yeah,
noise,
sure.
but the concern, those alarms do come down. But
Yeah.
like me as a kid, I was down there playing on the tracks when I shouldn't have been. I've seen kids playing on them. But I just live literally a block away. I've seen kids playing on them, so I mean that's the biggest concern. Kids don't know any better.
At 12:30 in the morning?
No, during.
Okay. No, that's the times I was putting out, was, somewhere's during that time where, there are times where I've heard the train come through and no horns. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of odd to me, because it's in their regulation, 20 seconds prior to a track crossing, that they have to lay on the horn, So some do it a lot too, and then some just don't do it.
No, I mean I'm not okay with it for the kids' reason. I'm just leave it the way it is. And I mean personally, I'd like to get rid of it because it's noisy, but I don't want to do
I
that.
know 2 boys that lost their life down in South Broadway.
I get that, I get
My
that.
only concern is with having the bar right there next to the tracks, that if somebody was to leave intoxicated and a horn didn't blow or something like that, yeah, that's my only thing, is unfortunately that bar is sitting right there on the railroad
And
tracks.
it's going ding, ding, ding.
Well, I mean, I get it, that it gets annoying, I don't know, but if it has a no blow, does that lay any liability on the city then,
No.
if somebody was to get struck?
To get struck, I have no idea. That, I don't know, that's an unknown.
Yeah, I don't know.
How many other cities?
I was told not to look at it until council directed me to.
I'm
Smart
not
to not
interested
review
in
it.
changing it, putting my name on, changing something like that in case someone were to get hurt. I think people get used to it. It is an annoyance, but it's a safety concern, and that's my main concern. Appreciate you
Got
looking
a
into it.
cabin closer than his house, and I can
Thank you,
sleep right
Casey.
through it.
Make sure you get
I can't.
Well, I've spoken to a few people around town regarding that, and most of the people have reiterated that they have gotten used to it. They've lived here long enough that they've gotten used to it over time. They don't really hear it anymore. The only time they ever really hear it is during the summertime if they sleep with their windows open, and that's about the only time they ever hear it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mixed thing with some people. And some people I've talked to, they said they wouldn't mind if you got rid of it, but they've gotten used to it. So, anybody else have any other comments on this?
I guess I'm used to it, and I think I don't know as I necessarily want to be the one that says, yeah, let's change it, and then a week later we got someone that gets killed out there, and then I feel bad for the rest of my life.
I don't know how you
I mean-
enforce something like that.
Well, and my other thing is I drive down Dillon Blacktop a lot, and even though they've got crossing arms there, I've watched 2 people knock them crossing arms off ahead of me because they don't come down in time. And the train is actually almost all the way through the intersection, if not just pretty close before the arms actually come down. So if you wouldn't have heard the horn going off, you'd had no clue that train was coming because the arms are just barely moving as the train's coming. And it happened twice. I know Shane Steinmates went through it with a tender truck and a spray rig on the back of it. It actually come down on top of him. So, I mean, they have their faults too, so I think having the horn there is just an extra safety if the arms don't come down.
And down around South Broadway where the elevator is, it's very loud for blowers.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
But you can't see the train from the east. There comes the elevator.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Roth.
Sure.
Much appreciated. Okay, I have a 5-minute executive session to discuss employee performance pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I noticed that a strategic plan was on the agenda. Is there something that, I don't know, is pending with that, or?
I think she's working on getting a plan for like this year of like projects that department head might have throughout the year, so we can have to get the plan going and maybe get something started. But I don't think that's like it's at the beginning stage. Like I think they just start talking about it.
Sitting here kind of was reflecting even after our discussion about doing the joint meeting. So for what it's worth, in the year of the grocery store closing, we had a grant that was intended to set the stage for strategic planning for the city. Collected data from citizens, was a facilitated process, and long story short, I feel like it kind of lost momentum from the city's angle. We never really truly closed it out. But we could take some of that and maybe think about really setting this meeting up so that you have some data to use instead of just kind of a free-for-all conversation, for lack of a better term, you know? I mean, and we have an AmeriCorps member that's starting tomorrow, and her designated role for the next year is to try to assist in doing data collection and doing some surveys of the public about what they see as needs and so forth. So if you would like, I can, you know, it might maybe make this take, might give us a little more time to set that meeting up in that way, but if you would like, we could try to build that in.
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Council?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, like I said,
Right.
we've got some data from St. John City, you know, like what a range of potential priorities, what did people see as the highest priority?
Yeah, I mean, basically,
and
the
things
way I
like
understood
that.
it was we basically left it to our department heads, and we gave them a few months to kind of analyze,
And
and
this,
then,
this would be different than, like, say, a sewer plan that says, here's a map of our city and here's the condition of the sewer in different areas, and this is the highest need to address replacing now, and this quadrant of the city is a low, you know, on down the road. I mean, it's different than that. That, I can see that being a reasonable strategic plan too for a city to do, but this was more along the lines of, you know, our housing versus business development versus, I don't remember. There were like 8 different things that that were brought up, but I do think it was the business development that ranked number 1, if memory serves, of the responses of people. But, you know, I can see also building in, not necessarily opinion-oriented data of our public, but also just, you know, data related to, I don't know, our city statistics, demographics, and so forth. Or even kind of like, where do we, okay, so one that's really kind of interesting at the county level, and I don't think a lot of people that work at the county even have their full hands around this, of the money that we take in, where is it coming from? And, you know, where are we expending money? You know, at the county level, for example, what we spend on roads and townships is one of the leading, you know, areas of spending. You know, it's, I think that might be one that would surprise people. But some of that kind of data might be
yeah, it'd be, I'd like to do
useful.
that. I think it'd
Okay.
be beneficial.
I think we're all in agreement that would be beneficial for all of us. So,
Okay.
okay. All right. I have a 5-minute executive session to discuss employee performance pursuant to non-elected personnel matters. I believe this was Jamie that called this? Or who did call?
No. We're not doing that.
We're not doing
first
this one?
That first one is, we didn't know what that
Okay.
one was for.
All right.
That's why I
Okay.
put the 5-minute non-elected personnel to discuss personnel matters.
Okay, so we have one for non-elected personnel. Who do you want in that?
Just council, mayor, and attorney.
Okay. I have a motion on the table. I have a second. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. We'll resume at 44. Okay, call this meeting back to order.
41.
Not having any more business, I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Instead of telling